Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next week 9. We're just plugging right along with this term. So good job to y'all, everybody. We are continuing to talk about security and compliance. We start talking about that week 8. We're going to continue with that today. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. We're on chapter 6. So what are the basic elements of risk management? What we understand by compliance management? What are the basic elements of information security management? What technology can we do to make e-commerce secure? What's the most important legal aspects of e-commerce? There's different foundations of risk management. We have threats, we have the ICT system and information. Stored in these systems, it can be attacked by software viruses, hackers, and espionage. People, own employees, external people can damage your ICT systems and destroy and damage information stored in these systems. Talked about this last time, the different threats. Talked about risk. So let's go ahead and continue talking about the risk management. There's basic risk management strategies. We see a lot of threats which could lead to the damage and destruction of ICT systems. Management has to deal with it. Though the variety of threats and corresponding risk is extremely large, there are only 4 basic risk management strategies. Avoidance of threat, which means that you are able to completely eliminate the threat of your management object. Normally, you're not going to be able to completely avoid a threat. Reduction of threats, which means that you lower your risk of resulting from that threat. In most cases, you'll be able to reduce the potential amount of loss. Whether you change the probabilities of occurrence, it can only be answered if the specific situation is known. Transfer risk, a third-party insurance. This means the third party will take over and pay the amount of loss if a risk occurs. You have to pay that fee for that. Acceptance of threats, which is selected when you don't have any chance to change the situation. And then we have the basic risk management task. We want to avoid, reduce, or accept threats. Transfer risk, that's the best strategy, and know what must be done when a risk occurs. Later, it leads to a business continuity management, which has a supplement risk management. Business continuity management. The main question is, how good is the business prepared to get back to work if some parts of the organization break down? We have prepare for emergency situation, provide documentation, train people, run emergency exercises. We have initiate and build up emergency organizations, alert management, disaster management team, run management organization processes if disaster occurs, reinstall the regular organization process, get back to regular organization processes, and stop and break down emergency organization and processes. So businesses continuity management include the ICT continuity management, of course, but it does have more preparing the ICT systems for continued operation. Businesses may break down even if no ICT system is damaged or the operation due to the disease of the employees. In many cases, the risk occurs which can lead to the breakdown of the ICT systems as well as other business resources like a fire in an office building. We have compliance management. Due to the increasing number of regulations and the need for the operational transparency, organizations are increasingly adopting the use of consolidated and harmonized sets of compliance controls. We have relevance of compliance management. The reason the high attention of management towards the compliance management is that any part of the organization is not compliant when there is significant risk for our organization. Missing compliance can lead to punishment through governmental authorities and loss of reputation in the business world. Integration into the GRC management. We have the governance. It's a combination of processes established and executed with the board of directors that are reflected on the organization structure and how it's managed and led toward achieving given objectives. You have risk management. It's protecting and managing risks that could hinder organizations to achieve the objectives. Compliance with companies' policies and procedures, laws, regulations, strong and efficient governance is considered to be a key factor in organization success. We have information security management. We have with respect to information, there are several common protection goals. We have authenticity, realness, credibility of object, subject, which is favorable. Integrity, data cannot be manipulated, unnoticed, or without proper organization or authorization. Confidentiality, information retrieval, not possible without proper organization. Availability, authorized subjects will not be restricted in their rights without proper authorization. Obligation, a transaction is binding if the executing subject is not able to disclaim a transaction afterward. Authorization, power and right to conduct activity. Information security management is not only the issue of the ICT department, it must be considered by all management areas and management levels. Objects of ISM. The overall objective of information security management is to protect information assets of the organization due to the above-mentioned protection goals. This leads to specific ISM objectives. We have fulfill organization duties, give precise, binding, and complete orders to your people. Select people carefully with respect to duties and responsibilities. Check what your people do in the daily operation. Inform your people about laws, rules, and instructions they have to follow. Build efficient and transparent organization. Build a professional security, continuity, and risk management. Increase efficiency and general unified rules and methods. Reduce time consumption and cost with security and security audits ingrained into the business processes, and run a continual improvement process to minimize the risk and maximize economic efficiency. Have a good reputation at customers, shareholders, authorities, and public. And parry liability claims and plead to the organization in criminal procedures and be integrated into the corporate security management systems. Don't forget to plan and implement. Define what has been regulated, define what could be regulated comprehensively or detailed, prepare information security concepts, define policies and guidelines, prepare implication projects, run initial trainings. All this we already know, but it's good to review it. You have operational monitoring, administer activities and manage documentation, run trainings and increase security awareness, identify key performance indicators, and conduct audits and assessments. And some documents you could look at is like Information Security Process Framework, Information Security Declaration, requirements to information security, continually and risk management with respect to the risk capability, risk prosperity and aspired security level, corporate principles, corporate objectives, requirements of stakeholders, requirements to laws, regulations, and standards. Description of ISM process and continual improvement process, organization and responsibilities, responsibility top management, integrated, transparent, audible process model, information security principles, processes and organization, technical resources, employees and external experts, life cycle, communication, training, motivation, raising awareness, surveys, and commitment of employees, penalties, information security concepts, job safety, human resources, facility management, IT security, subject-oriented concepts, virus protection, network, email, and IT processes. Technology here, you have data encryption. We have steganography. Objective is to hide existence of a message. Specific applications of technology is to transfer the message of digital watermarking. Examples of stenographic methods is special terms and phrases in the text documents empathetic link or hiding information in image files through setting of single pixels. Don't forget to have electronic signatures. A lot of people like to send documents through the email. That's great. You can minimize travel time, or if something gets lost in the US postal mail or it doesn't get faxed properly, you can always do electronic signatures. Sometimes you might need to have somebody notarize it. I know a couple people that have notary certificates, and you can meet them. I know when I bought my house in Texas, I went ahead and met this lady who was a notary, and she was a notary in multiple states. So the title company connected me with her, and we met at Starbucks. And of course, I had to pay her. I forgot what it was, like $25 or something for her to notarize it, because she had to spend her own gas money to come see me at Starbucks. Yes. And so I had to actually sign the documents in person. I had already signed electronic copy, but they wanted 2 sets of copies. I don't know. Sometimes they will take your handwritten one and look at it compared to the electronic one. So, yeah. You have public key infrastructure, that's a PKI. It's built and operated for 3-generation distribution, certification, storage, achieving, and deletion of encryption keys. Sometimes you might have to put a password in to get your document. A lot of times they might do like the first 4 letters of your social security number, last 4 letters of your social security number. Sometimes it's your birthday. Sometimes it's your initials. Sometimes it's your last name, first initial. It just depends what they want to do. But something that you could remember. There's even like smart cards. That's like a card chip, integrated circuit, ICC, pocket size card with embedded integration circuits. Usually smart cards are made of plastic. The application focuses on the proof of identity. PCI data security standard, payment card industry, mandatory regulations, installation and periodic updates for firewall to protect data, no use of pre-given values for the system passwords and other security parameters, protection of stored credit card data, card and transaction data shall be stored. Unless the complete credit card number and card number check. And then you have encryption, transfer of cardholder data, and other sensitive data. So be really careful, because a lot of times there's sometimes cracks in the security and somebody's information gets leaked. And it's assignment of unique identification code to each person who has access to the computer system. And it has restriction of physical access to the cardholder data. We have monitoring and documentation of all access to the network resources and cardholder data, and periodic checks and assignments to the security systems and processes, providing a company guideline for information security and ensuring that it is practical, practiced by all employees and business partners. Right. Oops. So what is compliance management? According to Google, compliance management is an ongoing process of monitoring and assessing systems to ensure they comply with industry and security standards, as well as corporate and regulatory policies and requirements. You want to automate your compliance management. Here's an example of a company using compliance plans. So the UBMD, they use compliance plan. Here's parts of their compliance plan. We have introduction, the UBMD affiliated practice corporations and compliance office staff. We have elements of effective compliance plan, code of conduct, policies, summary of parliament laws, rules, and regulations, revisions and compliance plan and attachments. We have the 8 compliance parts of the compliance plan. Number 1, code of conduct and written policies and procedures, establish compliance standards, describe compliance expectations, implement the operation of compliance program, provide guidance to employees on dealing with compliance issues, identify how to communicate compliance issues to appropriate personnel, describe how potential compliance problems are investigated and resolved, design compliance officer, vested with responsibility to day-to-day operations of compliance program, reports periodically to the UBDM Executive Committee and FPMP Governing Board. Training education, all UBMD employees, including executives and governing body members, shall be trained in compliance issues, expectations, and compliance program operation. Training shall occur annually and as part of orientation for all new employees. We have internal monitoring and auditing. As a system of internal and, if necessary, external audits shall be in place for routine identification of compliance risk areas and for self-evaluation of such risk areas and evaluation of potential or non-compliance as a result of such self-evaluations and audits. Risk assessments and audits are conducted on a regular basis. Communication lines of compliance officer shall be in place and accessible to all employees, executives, and governing body members to allow compliance issues to be reported. Communication lines shall include a method of anonymous and confidential good faith reporting of no and potential compliance issues. Enforcement of disciplinary standards. The code of conduct and policies within the compliance plan have been established to ensure the UBMD employees are aware that compliance shall be treated seriously and that violations and non-compliance shall be dealt with fairly, consistently, and uniformly. Responding to detected violations. Responsible and prompt steps shall be taken to respond to all violations detected through audits and monitoring and those reported by individuals. Implementation of corrective action shall take place for many violations conferred by the investigation. Number 8, non-retaliation. Retaliation for reporting compliance concerns in good faith will not be tolerated, regardless of whether or not a violation is found as a result of initial report. Reports of retaliation shall be investigated thoroughly and can result in disciplinary action and include determination of employment. The Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct is a statement of UBMD's dedication to upholding the ethical, professional, and legal standards we use as the basis for our daily and long-term decisions and actions. This has to do with compliance of laws, regulations, policies, and procedures, relationships with other providers, claims with the third-party players, confidential information, conflict of interest, business information, relationships, and violations. This is the UBMD Physicians Group. And we have relationships here, acceptance of business courtesies. Employees may not solicit or accept gifts or gratitudes from individuals or business organizations. Competitor information, gather competitor information through legal and ethical means only. Contract negotiation, all data gathered during contract negotiations must be accurate, current, and complete. No contracts will be entered into any person or company convicted of a criminal offense related to healthcare and is listed as debarred, included or ineligible by federal agency. Violations, confirmed violations of code of conduct will result in appropriate disciplinary action against the offending individual, up to and including termination of employment. Then don't forget your policies. You may want to do A, B, C through Z. A is education training. B is coding documentation. C is electronic medical records. D is record retention. E is audit and monitoring. F is overpayments. G is monitoring expiatory databases. H is reporting misconduct. I is diversity. J is language access services. K is harassment. L is sexual harassment. M is non-retaliation whistleblowers. N is internal investigations, O is corrective action, and P is appeals, and Q is government investigation. You might want to do a policy on like education training. But they have education training here. They have mandatory new hire training within 6 months of the commencement of employment with UBMD. All employees must attend a 1-hour compliance orientation training session with the UBMD compliance officer on his or her designee. Failure of any new employee to attend this session may result in disciplinary action too, including termination of employment. Mandatory annual training. All UBMD employees are required to complete annual compliance training to include the HIPAA, fraud, waste and abuse, diversity. All UMHD providers and employees are required to complete at least 2 hours of compliance training biannually. That's every 2 years. Not bad. Other educational services, there's a quarterly newsletter, compliance website, and personalized service. Then maybe you want another one. Maybe you want to do another policy and be specific with coding and documentation. For theirs, it's all medical records generated by the physicians must be complete, eligible, and include the following elements. Reason for encounter, relevant patient history, physical examination findings, prior diagnostic test results, assessment, clinical impression or diagnosis, plan of care, date and eligible identity of the observer, statement of the rationale in ordering diagnostic tests and other ancillary services if not documented and easily inferred by a third-party reviewer when appropriate medical training. Past and present diagnosis accessible to treating and consulting physician. Identification of appropriate health risk factors. Statements of patient progress, response, and changes in treatment. Revision of diagnosis. Items in the medical record should be dated to the date of the information being added to the record and not for the date of service being provided. You have CPT and the ICD-10 CM codes reported on all reimbursement claim forms or billing statements. They should be adequately supported by the documentation in the medical record. Be submitted only in the name of the provider who performed the service. We have pass requirements, payment for teaching physicians, provided in teaching setting using physical fee. Schedule is permissible only if services are personally provided by physician, not resident. Teaching physician is physically present during key proportions of the services the resident performs. Teaching physicians provides care under the conditions outlined in Part 5, Section B1, a compliance plan. For purposes of payment, the EMC services are billed by teaching physician require that they personally document at least one of the following. Review of the resident note, confirm and edit the resident's findings, document performance or participation in key components, summarize participation and management of the patient, and date, time, and signature. Past requirements, examples of wrong wording. I performed a history and physical examination of the patient and discussed the management of the resident. I review the resident's note and agree with the documented findings and plan of care. See the resident note for details. I saw and evaluated the patient and agree with the resident's note for details. I saw and evaluated the patient and agree with the resident's findings and plans as written. Some examples unacceptable. You can't put above, agree with above, rounded, review, agreed, discuss with resident, agreed, patient seen, evaluated. That's like copy paste, ditto. Those are not acceptable documentation. This is supposed to be professional. So those are just some examples. Right. I do have a video. Okay. I have a video to show you. Last time we met, I showed you some videos. With compliance cohort. Would you remember that? Okay, this is from SureCloud. This is showing you a platform demonstration using a program that specifies in compliance management.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I'm here to show you how students can use Otter to make lectures and campus events more accessible and
So you're looking to simplify your compliance management program. You've gotten by using that massive spreadsheet to track your control performance and regulatory mappings, but that's never been efficient. You're looking for a tool that comes with IT compliance content that's mapped to all of your regulatory obligations out of the box. A tool that centralizes compliance data and automates workflow, empowering your team to focus on more strategic objectives. SureCloud's compliance management solution is available on our 100% SaaS platform, empowering you to define and scope your compliance management program using SureCloud's wizard for selecting regulatory obligations and corresponding controls. Margaret, the compliance manager at Acme Corp, selects the regulations and control domains that should be used to scope control statements. Margaret can then deploy those controls against critical business functions, processes, assets, and more. During this process, she can assign a control owner, in this case Rishi, to one or many controls in bulk so that he can manage the control's lifecycle. Rishi can edit the control template to provide specificity and insight into how this control is implemented in his area of the business. He can also set a testing schedule and assign a control tester, like Alex, for self-assessment, design testing, and operational effectiveness testing. Alex gets emails when it's time to test a control. He clicks the link in his email, which takes him to the control test in SureCloud, where he can verify the implementation status of a control and provide any evidence as required. Once Alex submits the test, Rishi is kept up to date on this progress via his dashboard. Meanwhile, Margaret is keeping tabs on Acme Corp's progress in meeting regulatory obligations. As controls are tested, the bars on this chart will continue to populate as the controls are already pre-mapped to the regulations. SureCloud's control content and subsequent mappings is provided by the Secure Controls Framework, an industry-leading compliance content provider that boasts over 850 control statements that are mapped to more than 150 IT regulations and frameworks. As newer versions of controls are made available, SureCloud makes it easy to adopt these updates by notifying control owners and compliance managers who can review and accept these updates as they wish. Want to leverage questionnaires to measure compliance? No problem. SureCloud's internal assessment manager solution turns control statements into questions that can be sent to various areas of the business to assess compliance by regulation or control domain. Workflow automation is provided out of the box and can be configured to meet Acme Corp's changing needs using configurable business rule triggers. Margaret's group has successfully eliminated unnecessary email back and forth by using SureCloud's system-generated notifications. So now, everybody knows when they've been assigned a new control test or when their approval is needed automatically. And because now more than ever, executive management expects regular updates on the enterprise compliance posture, dashboards and reports are pre-built and ready to go out of the box. Don't see the report you're looking for? No problem. Create your own reports and dashboards with SureCloud's configuration interface to ensure your organization's unique reporting needs are met. Want to learn more? Reach out to book your demo today.
Okay, so that was SureCloud. So if you chose to do a program like SureCloud, that's how it works. There's not just SureCloud, there's other ones as well that you can use, but I just wanted to show that to you. Because nowadays we have a lot of AI helping out and software programs on the computers. So that's something to think about. This one is JMF's dashboard and editor tools. Another program you can choose to do.
Monitor, and maintain compliance. So we worked hard to create solutions at Jamf that make achieving compliance possible, regardless of the size of your team. One of the best ways to visualize compliance is with the new compliance dashboard in Jamf Protect. Admins can simply enable the compliance rules from the CIS benchmark that are most important to their organization and view built-in summary reporting for their entire fleet. In an ideal world, your dashboard always looks like this. Although a device might be in a perfect condition when it's initially unboxed and configured, the reality is that devices will often drift and deviate from compliance over time. When left unchecked, this can lead to a dashboard that looks more like this. The good news is Jamf provides everything you need to keep your fleet healthy and compliant. Let's take a look at how to easily define and deploy the relevant compliance settings for your fleet. One workflow that's proven to be really valuable to Apple admins is Jamf Compliance Editor. Compliance Editor pulls the latest macOS benchmarks directly from the macOS Security Compliance project for each respective macOS version. You simply need to select your target macOS version and your desired security benchmark to accelerate the generation of compliant configurations, settings, and auditing. Recently, support for iOS and iPadOS was added to Compliance Editor, removing any ambiguity that might exist around how to ensure that mobile devices are compliant. This means that you can now ensure that your entire fleet of Mac, iPhone, and iPad will adhere to your organization's exact requirements. Compliance Editor is very easy to use. It generates all of the configurations and corresponding documentation automatically. Of course, you can adjust or omit any settings you'd like before moving on to deployment. Compliance Editor integrates directly with Jamf Pro, which means it only takes a few clicks to generate the hundreds of detailed configurations that are required to make your endpoints compliant. You're now ready to deploy these to any existing devices, and also to ensure that every new device has the proper secured baselines configured from the moment it's unboxed.
All right, so that was another one that you could use. All right, here's a little video. There's 5 steps you can do to fix any problem at work.
If you're seeing this video, it's your sign that you have a message inside you that is meant to reach a whole bunch of people. Well, what if I told you that?
Oops, sorry, it started already.
Why don't you own commercial real estate? Yes, you. Why don't you own commercial property? After all,
You've heard the phrase move fast and break things. Facebook made it famous, but really Mark just made the mistake of saying it out loud and putting it on company posters. By the way, Mark and I are not on a first name basis. But sometimes using the first names of our leaders reminds us that leadership is a practice of imperfect humans leading imperfect humans. That's why it's so hard. How's it going, Elon? Move fast and break things is still a widely held belief that we can either make progress or take care of each other, one or the other. That a certain amount of wreckage is the price we have to pay for inventing the future. My wife and I have spent the last decade helping companies clean up this wreckage. And one of the main lessons from our work is that the trade-off at the heart of this worldview is false. The most effective leaders we know solve problems at an accelerated pace while also taking responsibility for the success and the well-being of their customers and employees and shareholders. They move fast and fix things. Now, what's come out of our work is something of a playbook for fixing problems quickly, whether it's a broken company culture or a struggling friendship. And so what I want to do with you today is invite you to try on this playbook over the course of an imaginary week. So how this is going to work is I'm going to give you an agenda for each day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You see where this is going? And then I want you to go home and try it and see how much progress you can make. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. I'm seeing some signs of consent, thank you. Start by thinking of a problem that you're having right now that involves at least one other person, your kids, your co-founders, your customers, etc. Now, in our imaginary week, it's now Monday morning. Now, Monday morning gets a bad rap, but we like to think of it as the gift of renewal that comes around every 7 days. On Monday, your task is to figure out what your real problem is, which may not be the problem that you thought you had just a minute ago. Because here's the thing. As human beings, we tend to be overconfident in the quality of our thoughts, particularly when it comes to diagnosing our own problems. My investors don't get it. My Gen Z employees are entitled. My dog is mad at me. Let's find out if you're right. The thing that's going to help you out most today is your own curiosity. So turn that original diagnosis, my Gen Z employees are entitled, into a question rather than a statement. What's going on with my Gen Z employees? Now, your next move sounds obvious, but you might be surprised to learn how infrequently people actually do it. Talk directly to the other people who have a stake in your problem. Ask them things you might not normally ask in polite company, things that require a little courage on your part. Now, as I look around the room, and I'm being a little presumptuous, I suspect this is going to be hard for some of you. I get it. I come from a very waspy family. There were 3 approved topics of conversation: the pets, the weather, and Tom Brokaw for some reason. But sometimes just a single brave conversation can reveal an entirely new structure to your problem. Some of you will discover, for example, that you have a role to play in creating the problem that you're now solving this week. Instead of your Gen Z employees being entitled, for example, you might discover it's you who feels entitled to burn them out and pay them less than what they're worth, simply because that was the broken work contract that you put up with at their age. I'm just spitballing up here. But what I do know is that whatever it is you learn today, you're going to be closer to understanding what's really getting in the way of the relationship or the organization or the life you want. All right, excellent first day, everyone. Get some rest. Now it's Tuesday. On Tuesday, your job is to run a smart experiment in how to solve your problem. Start by creating a good enough plan to strengthen the relationship at the center of it. Now, a good enough plan is distinct from a perfect plan, which is an elusive, fantastical creature that has never actually been spotted in the wild. We tend to think about problems through the lens of trust. So one prompt that often helps on Tuesday is, what could you do tomorrow to build more trust than you did today? For one team we were working with, they decided to stop texting each other about each other in the middle of meetings. Someone else we were coaching decided that it was time to come clean to his co-founders, that he was ready to move on from the business. Another leader decided that it was time for him to take full responsibility for the unintended harms of a product that he designed. Is your good enough plan going to work? Probably not. Statistically, not on the first try. That's why I'm giving you all week to figure it out, but also to make the inevitable, unavoidable mistakes. The purpose of Tuesday is not to get it right. The purpose of Tuesday is to learn. It's to get into the sandbox of your life and give yourself permission to play. All right, go and have the adult beverage of your choice, which you have definitely earned. Now it's Wednesday. On Wednesday, your job is to do something that adults generally don't like to do. It's to make new friends. But the research is really clear that whatever problem you're trying to solve this week, you're going to be better at solving it with people who don't already think like you do. I know you've heard this before many times, but today is your chance to practice. So describe your good enough plan, the one you came up with yesterday, to someone whose life experience has been materially different from yours. If you've been at the company for a decade, talk to someone who started last week. If you're a white partner, talk to a black partner. If you're queer like me, talk to the straightest person you can find. Contrary to what you may have heard recently, they're everywhere. And when you're done with that conversation, have another conversation with someone else who's different from you on some other gorgeous dimension of the human experience. This is going to take you all day. And some of you are going to be surprised to discover that it's your favorite day of the week. At the end of the day, you're going to be smiling, and your good enough plan is going to be an even better plan. Okay, now it's Thursday. Good morning. It's Thursday. You're unstoppable. Thursday is storytelling day. As humans, we need stories to make sense of change, to find our place in the script of it. Stories also help us to activate all the other people around us whose help we're going to need with that change. Stories have three parts: past, present, future. We often skip over that past part in moments of big change. We did some work with Uber when it was going through its very public crisis in leadership. And when the new guy came in, the new CEO, and hosted his first all-hands meeting, he committed to retain the edge that had made Uber a force of nature. Now, this line was met with thunderous applause, the applause of relief. He also joined in a standing ovation for his predecessor, who also happened to be in the room that day. I was so struck by the grace of this choice. And that's the word I want you to bring to your own storytelling. Listen, Uber had serious problems to solve, as anyone reading the news could figure out. But the people in that room had built something extraordinary, and they had something real to lose in an uncertain future. Instead of setting himself up as some kind of company savior, the new guy honored that complicated truth. Honor the complicated truth of the people around you, the ones who aren't so sure about all your big plans. Then tell us why you want to change things.
We tried everything, but Charlie still struggled with math. Then another mom recommended IXL, a learning program that really worked for her daughter. We thought, why not? Let's give it a try.
Finally, tell us about the future in vivid and specific language. Tell us what it's going to feel like when your story becomes our reality. All right, it's Friday. It's Friday and you're almost done, I promise. The payoff of Friday, the payoff of this whole week of hard work, is that you now get to move fast because you're far less likely to break things. So do everything you decided to do over the last week, but now do it with a sense of urgency. Urgency releases the energy in a system. It makes it clear to everyone that you take the problem seriously. So whatever administrative hurdles, whatever unproductive process is in the way of taking action today, just strip it out. Just refuse to tolerate it. People ask us all the time about the optimal timing for big change. And our answer is almost always the same. How about now? Now seems good. Take action now, and then learn from whatever happens next. And at the end of this day, at the end of this week, your even better plan has a chance of being a great plan. All right, that's it. That's your week. Congratulations. You did it as you rest and recover, which is essential. I want to leave you with one final thought. I spend my time helping leaders to change and evolve, and no one has ever said to me, I wish I had taken longer and done less. What I do hear again and again is the opposite. And so my invitation to you today is to practice taking less time to do more of the things that will make your relationships and your teams and your organizations stronger. And to be honest, you have my blessing to take longer than a week to get it done. What I don't want you to do is to take months or even years, which tends to be our default timeline for solving hard problems. Most of our problems deserve a more urgent response. Most of our problems deserve a metabolic rate that honors the frustration and the mediocrity and the real pain of the status quo for some of you. Thank you. So whether your name is Mark or Elon or Chris, thank you for having me, or Anne, find out what happens when you move fast and fix things and decide that the moment that matters most is right now. Thank you.
Kent State is a global university. We have programs in over.
Right, so good video. You could use templates. Providers may choose a template to assist in documented medical information. This could allow for full and complete collection of information to demonstrate applicable coverage and coding criteria. So if you're in the medical field, that's a good idea. We always want to always keep records of everything. Cloning. Documentation is considered like cloning when it's worded exactly like similar to previous entries. Documentation must reflect the patient condition, necessitating treatment, treatment rendered, and if applicable, the overall progress of the patient to demonstrate medical necessity. Cloning can occur when documentation is exactly the same from patient to patient. Individualized patient notes for each patient encounter are required. Oops, it says enable AI content. Okay. Oh. Here's another PowerPoint. This is a PowerPoint somebody in South Africa made that talks about their company. Yeah, okay. Risk and compliance management system. Their company is ICASA Acasa's current risk and compliance system contract ended in March 2020. It was against the background that ICASA Risk Management Compliance Unit seeks to procure an automatic integrated risk and compliance management software solution. Right here, we have a risk management system, a full licenses for risk management, staff license to update and review the risk and actions allocated in the user. Compliance management system, full licenses for compliance management staff, act owner's license to capture and update compliance with relevant ACT with ACT. Content bid functionality, phase 1, bidder's reliability, experience, reputation, profitability, long-term sustainability. Phase 2 is live demonstration. Section evaluates the bidder's reliability, experience, reputation, profitability, and long-term sustainability, and bidders get allocated points before proceeding next. Live demonstration of the system per requirement indicated. A total of 80 points are allocated for live demonstration, 1 point allocated for each function. Only bidders who pass the cut of 64 out of 80 would be evaluated for further price. So this is another way you can eliminate people. Maybe you're not sure what to choose from. This is a way you can do it. Okay. All right, I have a video for you. This is going to leave you thinking. This is from Alpha Leaders. This is his motivation. Okay, so take accountability for your actions. You know, working for something you don't care about is called stress. Working for something you truly love is called passion. Okay. Simon, okay?
Hey, attention everyone! I've been trying to catch the Pontiac Bandit for 8 years. You know how many months? Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. I think one of the mistakes that people make is they think purpose comes from their job. I've been a whatever for so many years, and when then I lose my job or I retire, I now don't have a sense of purpose because I so closely associated my self-worth with the job that I did. I knew what my job was. I had a sense of purpose. And one wonders if those things are conflated, right? Which is I had a sense of purpose for my job, but then when I didn't have the job, all of a sudden I woke up in the morning, didn't know what to do. The purpose is not your MOS. Your purpose is not you're a saw gunner. Your purpose is not the job that you wake up to do every day. Your purpose is something bigger.
I have 5 little rules that you can follow as you find your spark and bring your spark to life. The first is to go after the things that you want. Let me tell you a story. So a friend of mine and I, we went for a run in Central Park. The Roadrunners organization, on the weekends, they host races. And it's very common at the end of the race, they'll have a sponsor who will give away something, apples or bagels or something. And on this particular day, when we got to the end of the run, there were some free bagels. And they had picnic tables set up, and on one side was a group of volunteers. On the table were boxes of bagels, and on the other side was a long line of runners waiting to get their free bagel. So I said to my friend, let's get a bagel. And he looked at me and said, that line's too long. And I said, free bagel. And he said, I don't want to wait in line. And I was like, free bagel. And he says, nah, it's too long. And that's when I realized that there's 2 ways to see the world. Some people see the thing that they want, and some people see the thing that prevents them from getting the thing that they want. I could only see the bagels. He could only see the line. Because the rule is, you can go after whatever you want. You just cannot deny anyone else to go after whatever they want. You don't have to do it the way everybody else has done it. You can do it your way. You can break the rules. You just can't get in the way of somebody else getting what they want. Rule number 2. In the 18th century, there was something that spread across Europe and eventually made its way to America called puerperal fever, also known as the Black Death of childbed. Basically what was happening is women were giving birth and they would die within 48 hours after giving birth. This Black Death of childbirth was the ravage of Europe, and it got worse and worse and worse over the course of over a century. And these doctors and men of science wanted to study and try and find the reason for this Black Death of childbed, and so they got to work studying, and they would study the corpses of the women who had died. And in the morning they would conduct autopsies, and then in the afternoon they would go and deliver babies and finish their rounds. And it wasn't until somewhere in the mid-1800s that Oliver Wendell Holmes realized that all of these doctors who were conducting autopsies in the morning weren't washing their hands before they delivered babies in the afternoon. And he pointed it out and said, guys, you're the problem. And they ignored him and called him crazy for 30 years, until finally somebody realized that if they simply washed their hands, it would go away. And that's exactly what happened. When they started sterilizing their instruments and washing their hands, the Black Death of childbed disappeared. The lesson here is sometimes you're the problem. Take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability. Lesson 3, take care of each other. The United States Navy SEALs are perhaps the most elite warriors in the world. And one of the SEALs was asked, who makes it through the selection process? Who is able to become a SEAL? And his answer was, I can't tell you the kind of person that becomes a SEAL. I can't tell you the kind of person that makes it through BUD/S. But I can tell you the kind of people who don't become SEALs. He says the guys that show up with huge, bulging muscles, covered in tattoos, who want to prove to the world how tough they are, none of them make it through. He said the preening leaders who like to delegate all their responsibility and never do anything themselves, none of them make it through.
With IXL, not only does Charlie get extra math practice and guidance, but he's also
He says some of the guys that make it through are skinny and scrawny. He said some of the guys that make it through, you will see them shivering out of fear. He says, however, all the guys that make it through, when they find themselves physically spent, emotionally spent, when they have nothing left to give physically or emotionally, somehow, some way, they are able to find the energy to dig down deep inside themselves, to find the energy to help the guy next to them. They become SEALs, he said. You want to be an elite warrior. It's not about how tough you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how fast you are. If you want to be an elite warrior, you better get really, really good at helping the person to the left of you and helping the person to the right of you. Because that's how people advance in the world. The world is too dangerous and the world is too difficult for you to think that you can do these things alone. If you find your spark, I commend you. Now, who are you going to ask for help, and when are you going to accept help when it's offered? Learn that skill. Learn by practicing helping each other. It'll be the single most valuable thing you ever learn in your entire life, to accept help when it's offered and to ask for it when you know that you can't do it. The amazing thing is, when you learn to ask for help, you'll discover that there are people all around you who've always wanted to help you. They just didn't think you needed it because you kept pretending that you had everything under control. And the minute you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I don't think I can do this, you will find that lots of people who love you will rush in and take care of you. But that'll only happen if you learn to take care of them first. Lesson 4. Nelson Mandela is a particularly special case study in the leadership world because he is universally regarded as a great leader. You can take other personalities, and depending on the nation you go to, we have different opinions about other personalities. But Nelson Mandela across the world is universally regarded as a great leader. And he was asked one day, how did you learn to be a great leader? And he responded that he would go with his father to tribal meetings. And he remembers 2 things when his father would meet with other elders. 1, they would always sit in a circle. And 2, his father was always the last to speak. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does 2 things. 1, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And 2, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. To keep your opinions to yourself. If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. Practice being the last to speak.
One afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, "Do you like your job?" And without skipping a beat, Noah says, "I love my job." And so I followed up. I said, "What is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job?" And without skipping a beat, Noah said, "Throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better." He said, "Not just my manager, any manager." And then he said something magical. He says, "I also work at Caesar's Palace. And at Caesar's Palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong." He says, "When I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck." He says, "Here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself." So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying, we've got to get the right people on the bus. I've got to fill my team. I've got to get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people. It's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's Palace.
There was a former Undersecretary of Defense who was invited to give a speech at a large conference, about 1,000 people. And he was standing on the stage with his cup of coffee and a styrofoam cup. And he took a sip of his coffee and he smiled and he looked down at the coffee. And then he went off script. And he said, "You know, last year I spoke at this exact same conference. Last year I was still the undersecretary. And when I spoke here last year, they flew me here business class. And when I arrived at the airport, there was somebody waiting for me to take me to my hotel. And they took me to my hotel and they had already checked me in and they just took me up to my room. And the next morning I came downstairs and there was someone waiting in the lobby to greet me, and they drove me to this here same venue and handed me a cup of coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup." He says, "I'm no longer the undersecretary. I flew here coach. I took a taxi to my hotel and I checked myself in. When I came down the lobby this morning, I took another taxi to this venue. And when I asked someone, 'Do you have any coffee?' he pointed to the coffee machine in the corner and I poured myself a cup of coffee into this here styrofoam cup." He says the lesson is, the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember this. As you gain fame, as you gain fortune, as you gain position and seniority, people will treat you better. They will hold doors open for you. They will get you a cup of tea and coffee without you even asking. None of that stuff is meant for you. That stuff is meant for the position you hold. It is meant for the level that you have achieved of leader or success or whatever you want to call it. But you will always deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember that lesson of humility and gratitude. You can accept all the free stuff. You can accept all the perks. Absolutely, you can enjoy them. But just be grateful for them and know that they're not for you.
And so I keep meeting these wonderful, fantastic, idealistic, hardworking, smart kids. They've just graduated school. They're in their entry-level job. And I sit down with them and I go, "How's it going?" They go, "I think I'm going to quit." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "I'm not making an impact." I'm like, "You've been here 8 months." You know? It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain and they have this abstract concept called impact that they want to have in the world, which is the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I don't care if you go up the mountain quickly or slowly, but there's still a mountain. And so what this young generation needs to learn is patience. That some things that really, really matter, like love or job fulfillment, joy, love of life, self-confidence, a skill set, any of these things, all of these things take time. Sometimes you can expedite pieces of it, but the overall journey is arduous and long and difficult. All you need to do is have the will and the desire to want to understand what drives and inspires you.
All right. I hope you feel inspired. All right, so that ends today. Make sure you do your summary and do your discussion question. I'll see you next week. And we'll do it all over again. Bye now.